all creatures were eternally singing the praise of the Creator. Man fails to hear these divine melodies because his soul is enmeshed in the illusion of material existence. When he liberates himself from the bondage of the lower world with its sense limitations, the music of the spheres will again be audible as it was in the Golden Age. Harmony recognizes harmony, and when the human soul regains its true estate, it will not only hear the celestial choir but also join with it in an everlasting anthem of praise to that eternal good controlling the infinite number of parts and conditions of being. The Greek mysteries included in their doctrines a magnificent concept of the relationship existing between music and form. The elements of architecture, for example, were considered as comparable to musical modes and notes, or as having a musical counterpart. Consequently, when a building was erected in which a number of these elements were combined, the structure was then likened to a musical chord, which was harmonic only when it fully satisfied the mathematical requirements of harmonic intervals. The realization of this analogy between sound and form led Goethe to declare that architecture is crystallized music. In constructing their temples of initiation, the early priests frequently demonstrated their superior knowledge of the principles underlying the phenomena known as vibration. A considerable part of the mystery rituals consisted of invocations and intonements, for which purpose special sound chambers were constructed. A word whispered in one of these apartments was so intensified that the reverberations made the entire building sway and be filled with a deafening roar. The very wood and stone used in the erection of these sacred buildings eventually became so thoroughly permeated with the sound vibrations of the religious ceremonies that when struck they would reproduce the same tones, thus repeatedly impressed into their substances by the rituals. Every element in nature has its individual keynote. If these elements are combined in a composite structure, the result is a chord that, if sounded, will disintegrate the compound into its integral parts. Likewise, each individual has a keynote that, if sounded, will destroy him. The allegory of the walls of Jericho falling when the trumpets of Israel were sounded is undoubtedly intended to set forth the arcane significance of individual keynote or vibration. The philosophy of color. Light, writes Edmund E. Babbitt, reveals the glories of the external world and yet is the most glorious of them all. It gives beauty, reveals beauty, and is itself most beautiful. It is the analyzer, the truth-teller and the exposer of shams, for it shows things as they are. Its infinite streams measure off the universe and flow into our telescopes from stars which are quintillions of miles distant. On the other hand, it descends to objects inconceivably small, and reveals through the microscope objects 50 millions of times less than can be seen by the naked eye. Like all other fine forces, its movement is wonderfully soft, yet penetrating and powerful. Without its vivifying influence, vegetable, animal, and human life must immediately perish from the earth, and general ruin take place. We shall do well, then, to consider this potential and beautiful principle of light and its component colors, for the more deeply we penetrate into its inner laws, the more will it present itself as a marvelous storehouse of power to vitalize, heal, refine, and delight mankind. See the principles of light and color. Since light is the basic physical manifestation of life, bathing all creation in its radiance, it is highly important to realize, in part at least, the subtle nature of this divine substance. That which is called light is actually a rate of vibration causing certain reactions upon the optic nerve. Few realize how they are walled in by the limitations of the sense perceptions. Not only is there a great deal more to light than anyone has ever seen, but there are also unknown forms of light which no optical equipment will ever register. There are unnumbered colors which cannot be seen, as well as sounds which cannot be heard, odors which cannot be smelt, flavors which cannot be tasted, and substances which cannot be felt. Man is thus surrounded by a supersensible universe of which he knows nothing because the centers of sense perception within himself have not been developed sufficiently to respond to the subtle rates of vibration of which that universe is composed. Insert. The theory of elemental music. From Flood's De Musica Mundana. In this diagram two interpenetrating pyramids are again employed, one of which represents fire and the other earth. It is demonstrated according to the law of elemental harmony that fire does not enter into the composition of earth nor earth into the composition of fire. The figures on the chart disclose the harmonic relationships existing between the four primary elements according to both Flood and the Pythagoreans. Earth consists of 4 parts of its own nature. Water of 3 parts of earth and 1 part of fire. The sphere of equality is a hypothetical point where there is an equilibrium of 2 parts of earth and 2 parts of fire. Air is composed of 3 parts of fire and 1 part of earth. Fire, of 4 parts of its own nature. Thus earth and water bear to each other the ratio of 4:3, or the Diatessaron harmony, and water and the sphere of equality the ratio of 3:2, or the diapent harmony. Fire and air also bear to each other the ratio of 4:3, or the Diatessaron harmony, and air and the sphere of equality the ratio of 3:2, or the diapent harmony. As the sum of a Diatessaron and a diapent equals a diapason, or octave, it is evident that both the sphere of fire and the sphere of earth are in diapason harmony with the sphere of equality, and also that fire and earth are in dysdiapason harmony with each other. Continued. Among both civilized and savage peoples, color has been accepted as a natural language in which to couch their religious and philosophical doctrines. The ancient city of Ecbatana, as described by Herodotus, its 7 walls colored according to the 7 planets, revealed the knowledge of this subject possessed by the Persian Magi. The famous zikkurat or astronomical tower of the god Nebel at Borsippa ascended in 7 great steps or stages, each step being painted in the key color of one of the planetary bodies. See Lenormand's Chaldean magic. It is thus evident that the Babylonians were familiar with the concept of the spectrum in its relation to the 7 creative gods or powers. In India, one of the Mughal emperors caused a fountain to be made with 7 levels. The water pouring down the sides through specially arranged channels changed color as it descended, passing sequentially through all shades of the spectrum. In Tibet, color is employed by the native artists to express various moods. Al-Austin Waddell, writing of northern Buddhist art, notes that in Tibetan mythology white and yellow complexions usually typify mild moods, while the red, blue, and black belong to fierce forms, though sometimes light blue, as indicating the sky, means merely celestial. Generally the gods are pictured white, goblins red, and devils black, like their European relative. See the Buddhism of Tibet. In Meno, Plato, speaking through Socrates, describes color as an effluence of form, commensurate with sight, and sensible. In the Edda he discourses more at length on the subject. Thus let us carry out the principle which has just been affirmed, that nothing is self-existent, and then we shall see that every color, white, black, and every other color, arises out of the eye meeting the appropriate motion, and that what we term the substance of each color is neither the active nor the passive element, but something which passes between them, and is peculiar to each percipient. Are you certain that the several colors appear to every animal, say a dog, as they appear to you? In the Pythagorean tetractys, the supreme symbol of universal forces and processes, are set forth the theories of the Greeks concerning color and music. The first 3 ducts represent the threefold white light, which is the Godhead containing potentially all sound and color. The remaining 7 ducts are the colors of the spectrum and the notes of the musical scale. The colors and tones are the active creative powers which, emanating from the first cause, establish the universe. The 7 are divided into 2 groups, one containing 3 powers and the other for a relationship also shown in the tetractys. The higher group, that of 3, becomes the spiritual nature of the created universe. The lower group, that of 4, manifests as the irrational sphere, or inferior world. In the mysteries the 7 logi, or creative lords, are shown as streams of force issuing from the mouth of the Eternal One. This signifies the spectrum being extracted from the white light of the Supreme Deity. The 7 creators, or fabricators, of the inferior spheres were called by the Jews the Elohim. By the Egyptians they were referred to as the builders, sometimes as the governors, and are depicted with great knives in their hands with which they carved the universe from its primordial substance. Worship of the planets is based upon their acceptation as the cosmic embodiments of the 7 creative attributes of God. The lords of the planets were described as dwelling within the body of the sun, for the true nature of the sun, being analogous to the white light, contains the seeds of all the tone and color potencies which it manifests. There are numerous arbitrary arrangements setting forth the mutual relationships of the planets, the colors, and the musical notes. The most satisfactory system is that based